The first time my phone exploded with missed calls, I was standing under the Nevada sun, staring at a stretch of desert most people believe doesn't exist. Facebook was still open in my hand, frozen on a shaky video of my sister's wedding reception, screaming guests, shattered glass, a groom shouting words that would never be taken back. My father's name lit up the screen again. I didn't answer. 3 days earlier, he had told me I would embarrass everyone if I showed up. Now the perfect day he wanted without me was burning down in real time, and somehow I was the one they suddenly needed. My father's exact words came back to me with cruel clarity. "You're so awkward that everyone feels uncomfortable," he said. "Don't come." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. That calm certainty, like he was stating a simple, unavoidable fact, hurt more than if he had yelled. I remember sitting on the edge of my bunk that night, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the scuffed concrete floor of my quarters. Outside, the desert wind pushed fine sand against the building in soft, steady taps like a clock, counting down something I didn't yet understand. He went on because of course he did. He always explained himself as if logic could erase cruelty. "Your sister's fiancé is a very important man," he said. "His family is watching everything. This wedding needs to be flawless. You don't fit that environment." I waited for him to soften it. For a pause, for some sign that he realized he was talking to his daughter, not a liability. None came. "I don't want any scenes," he finished. "Just stay away." I said nothing for a long moment. Silence had become my specialty around my father. Growing up, I learned quickly that words only made things worse. If I tried to explain myself, he would sigh. If I pushed back, he would accuse me of being dramatic. Silence at least let me keep a shred of dignity. "Okay," I said finally. He exhaled, relieved. "Good, that's for the best." The call ended, and I sat there long after the screen went dark. I was on active duty serving my country in a place most Americans whispered about like it was a myth. I followed orders for a living. I lived by discipline, responsibility, and accountability. Yet in my own family, I was still the problem child, the one who didn't smile, didn't laugh loud enough, didn't know how to charm a room full of strangers. My sister Emily was the opposite. She always had been. Emily floated through life with an ease I never understood. She knew when to touch someone's arm, when to tilt her head just so, when to laugh at a joke that wasn't funny. People felt seen around her, or at least they felt entertained. My father loved that about her. He loved how she made him look. Her fiancé Marcus fit perfectly into the image my father worshipped. Wealthy family, private schools, the kind of confidence that came from never having to doubt your place in the world. My father talked about him the way some men talk about trophies, not as a person but as proof that they'd done something right. I had met Marcus exactly twice. Both times he shook my hand like he was checking something off a list. He looked past me almost immediately, turning his attention back to my father, back to Emily, back to the people who mattered. I didn't take it personally. I was used to being invisible. Still, being told outright not to attend my own sister's wedding landed differently. The invitation sat unopened on the small metal desk in my room. Cream-colored envelope, gold lettering. I hadn't even bothered tearing it open. What was the point? I already knew where I stood. The irony wasn't lost on me. I could handle classified material, manage pressure, and function in high-stakes environments without flinching. But put me in a ballroom with strangers in expensive clothes, and suddenly I was an embarrassment. The decision not to go didn't feel dramatic. It felt inevitable. Instead of requesting leave or booking a flight home, I confirmed my return to base. Area 51 wasn't glamorous. It was quiet, controlled, and brutally honest. Out there, no one cared how charming you were. You did your job, or you didn't. Your worth was measured in competence, not appearances. The day before the wedding, my father sent one more message. "Don't do anything stupid, don't show up." I stared at the text for a long time. Then I set my phone face down and went back to packing my gear. If he wanted me gone, I would be gone completely. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and mercilessly bright. The Nevada desert has a way of stripping things down to their essence. No lush distractions, no soft edges, just sky sand and heat. I liked that about it. It didn't pretend to be something it wasn't. I went through my routine like any other day, boots, uniform, coffee that tasted faintly burned. As I walked across the base, the sun already climbing, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew my sister was getting ready. Hair makeup photographers buzzing around her. My father probably pacing, rehearsing conversations with Marcus's family, making sure every detail reflected well on him. And I wasn't there. For the first time, that didn't feel like a failure. It felt like relief. I took a break mid-morning and wandered along a familiar path near the perimeter, the desert stretching endlessly beyond the fence. I pulled out my phone more out of habit than curiosity. I told myself I was just killing time. That's when I opened Facebook. At first, it was exactly what I expected. Photos of flowers, smiling faces, Emily in white glowing. My father standing tall beside her, chest out, pride written all over his face. I almost closed the app. Then I saw the video. It wasn't polished. It wasn't framed carefully. Someone had hit record in a panic. The camera shook, voices, overlapping tension crackling through the screen. I recognized the reception hall immediately, crystal chandeliers, linen-draped tables, everything my father had insisted be perfect. Marcus's voice cut through the noise, sharp and ugly. And in that instant, standing under the endless desert sky, I felt something shift. A tightness in my chest I hadn't noticed before loosened, replaced by a cold, sinking certainty. I whispered to myself, barely audible over the wind. "What did you do?" My phone vibrated in my hand. Dad calling. I didn't answer. I didn't answer my father's call. Not the first one, not the second. I slipped my phone into my pocket as if that small act could keep the chaos contained. Out here beyond the perimeter fence, the desert didn't care about weddings or reputations. It didn't care who had embarrassed whom. The wind moved across the sand the same way it always did, indifferent, relentless. I finished my shift on autopilot. My body knew what to do even when my mind was somewhere else. Checklists, procedures, quiet professionalism. A few people nodded at me in passing. No one asked questions. No one expected explanations. That more than anything reminded me why I'd chosen this life. By late afternoon, the sun had turned brutal, flattening the world into sharp lines and blinding light. I found a shaded bench near one of the administrative buildings and finally pulled my phone back out. I had 12 missed calls. 8 from my father, 2 from my stepmother, 1 from Emily, 1 from a number I didn't recognize. I opened Emily's message first. "Please call me, something's wrong." No apology. No acknowledgement of the fact that she'd gone along with my exclusion. Just fear bleeding through the screen. I stared at her words for a long time, feeling a familiar tug of responsibility rise in my chest. It was the same feeling I'd had my entire life, the instinct to step in, smooth things over, make things easier for everyone else. I closed the message without responding. The number I didn't recognize left a voicemail. I didn't listen to it yet. I already knew what it would say. The wedding had imploded, and suddenly I wasn't an inconvenience anymore. I was a resource. As the evening cooled, I walked back toward my quarters. The sky burned orange and purple, the kind of sunset people pay thousands of dollars to photograph. I'd always found it ironic that something so beautiful could exist in a place most people associated with secrecy and fear. But that was the truth of it. Appearances were rarely the whole story. I showered, changed into civilian clothes, and sat on my bed with my back against the wall. Only then did I let myself replay the video in my head. Marcus's voice. The way it had sliced through the room. The look on my father's face, something between fury and disbelief. I hadn't seen the whole thing, not yet, but I'd seen enough to know this wasn't a minor hiccup. This was a rupture. My phone buzzed again. Emily this time. I let it ring out. I hated myself a little for that. But I also knew if I answered I would slide back into old patterns. I would listen. I would absorb. I would rush in without being asked why I had been pushed out in the first place. Instead, I opened the voicemail from the unknown number. Is this Sarah?" A man asked, his voice tight. "This is Uncle Tom. I'm at the wedding. Or, well, what's left of it. Your dad's asking for you. He says it's important." Important. The word tasted bitter. I lay back and stared at the ceiling. The hum of the building's ventilation system filled the silence. In my line of work, important usually meant urgent, time-sensitive, potentially dangerous. In my family, it meant inconvenient truths were threatening the image they'd worked so hard to maintain. I thought about my father as he'd been when I was growing up, a man obsessed with order, with how things looked from the outside. He wasn't cruel in obvious ways. He provided. He showed up to school events when it suited him, but everything had conditions attached. Approval was transactional. Love was something you earned by behaving correctly. Emily learned that early. She became exactly what he wanted. I didn't. When I joined the military, he'd been proud at first. It sounded good when he told people. His daughter serving her country. But that pride faded as soon as he realized it wouldn't translate well at cocktail parties. I wasn't climbing a corporate ladder. I wasn't marrying into money. I was doing something that made him uncomfortable because he couldn't control it. Area 51 had been my escape, the one place where competence mattered more than charm, where being awkward didn't disqualify you from belonging. Out here, no one asked me to smile more. I picked up my phone again and scrolled through social media, bracing myself. The video had spread, shares multiplied by the minute. Comment sections exploded with speculation and outrage. People I didn't know weighed in on my family like they were characters in a show. Did you hear what he said to the bride's father? Rich guy meltdown? Shocking. That poor girl. I watched the clip again, forcing myself not to look away this time. Marcus's face was flushed, his jaw-tight eyes wild. He wasn't charming anymore. He wasn't polished. He was exposed. And my father, my unshakable, image-obsessed father, looked small. For a brief, shameful moment, I felt vindicated. They had wanted a perfect day without me. They'd believed I was the variable that could ruin everything, and yet without my presence, the mask had slipped anyway. The problem hadn't been me. The realization settled heavily in my chest. My phone rang again. This time I answered. What I said, keeping my voice flat. "Where the hell are you?" my father demanded. The calm authority he usually wielded was gone, replaced by raw panic. "Do you have any idea what's happening here?" "I have a pretty good idea," I replied. "You need to come home," he said, "now." I closed my eyes. "You told me not to." "That was different," he snapped. "This is an emergency." "Funny how that works," I said quietly. "I'm an embarrassment until you need me." There was a pause. I could almost hear him recalibrating, switching tactics. "Your sister needs you," he said instead. "This family needs you." I laughed softly, the sound surprising even me. "No," I said. "You need damage control." His breath hitched. "Sarah, don't do this. Do what I asked. Follow your instructions." Silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. "Just think about it," he said finally. "Please." The word hung there fragile. He had never said it to me before. "I am thinking about it," I replied, and I meant it. I ended the call and set my phone down. The desert outside my window was dark now, the sky scattered with stars. I felt a pull in two directions: duty and distance, habit and self-respect. For the first time, I didn't rush to choose them. I lay there listening to the quiet, knowing one thing with absolute certainty: if I went back, it wouldn't be as the daughter who apologized for existing. It would be on my terms. The night passed without sleep. Not the restless, tossing kind, but the alert stillness of someone waiting for something inevitable. I lay on my bunk, staring at the faint outline of the ceiling, listening to the low hum of the bass, settling into its nighttime rhythm. Somewhere in the distance, a vehicle moved. A door closed. Then quiet again. The kind of quiet that gives your thoughts too much room to stretch. Morning came pale and sharp. The desert doesn't ease you into the day. It throws the sun at you and expects you to adjust. I dressed, tied my boots, and went through the motions. Coffee, check-in. A nod here, a brief exchange there. I caught my reflection in a window as I passed, composed, controlled, exactly as I was trained to be. No one could see the small fracture running through me. It was my sister's wedding day. I didn't say that out loud. I didn't need to. The thought sat in my chest like a weight I had learned to carry quietly. I imagined Emily stepping into her dress the way our stepmother would hover with tissues, the way my father would straighten his tie and look at his watch, already thinking about the guests who mattered most. I wondered if Emily had noticed my empty seat in her mind yet, or if the noise around her was too loud. By mid-morning my phone had gone silent. The calls had stopped. That worried me more than the ringing ever had. Silence in my family usually meant decisions were being made without me. I took my break near the edge of the base where the land flattened into something that looked endless. The fence cut a clean line across the horizon. Beyond it, the desert shimmered in the heat. I'd always liked this spot. It reminded me that there were boundaries I couldn't cross and others I no longer had to. I sat on a low concrete barrier and let the sun soak into my shoulders. For a moment I closed my eyes and breathed. I told myself I was fine. I told myself I had chosen this. Both things were true, and neither made it easier. Out of habit more than curiosity, I checked my phone. There were new notifications. Not calls this time, tags, messages. A flood of activity that hadn't been there an hour earlier. I opened Facebook expecting more polished wedding photos, maybe a carefully worded statement about a private family matter. Instead, I saw chaos. The first video loaded slowly, the desert's weak signal stretching each second thin. The image sharpened just as a voice cut through the noise, angry, loud, unmistakably Marcus. The camera swung wildly, catching glimpses of white tablecloths, overturned chairs, faces frozen in shock. Someone screamed. Glass shattered. My breath caught. I watched frozen as Marcus leaned toward my father, his face twisted with something ugly and unrestrained. The words spilled out of him in a slurred, venomous rush. He mocked. He accused. He said things that couldn't be smoothed over or excused later. The room went deathly quiet around him, the kind of silence that happens when people realize they're witnessing something irreversible. Then the video cut. I stared at the screen, my pulse roaring in my ears. Around me, the base went on as usual. A pair of colleagues walked past laughing about something mundane. A truck rumbled by. The contrast was surreal, like I was standing between two worlds that refused to acknowledge each other. I scrolled. There were more videos, different angles, short clips uploaded by guests who had clearly started recording once they realized this wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a meltdown. In one, Emily stood to the side, her hands pressed to her mouth, her white dress stark against the disorder. In another, my stepmother tried to intervene, her voice shaking as she begged Marcus to stop. And in every single one, my father stood rigid, his face flushed, his jaw set. The man who prided himself on control had lost it completely, not because he was shouting, but because he couldn't stop what was happening. Comments poured in faster than I could read them. What did I just watch? This is insane. That poor bride. He just destroyed his own wedding. I swallowed hard. My phone felt heavy in my hand, like it was pulling me down with it. I watched one clip again, forcing myself to take it all in. This was real. This was happening. And I was watching it unfold from a place I had been told to stay. A message popped up from Emily. He's not himself, I'm scared. My chest tightened. Fear, real fear, threaded through her words. For all her ease and charm, Emily had never been good at handling chaos. She thrived in controlled environments, in rooms where everyone smiled and followed the script. This was something else entirely. I typed a response, then erased it, typed again, stopped. Another message arrived, this one from my father. Call me now. I looked up from my phone at the desert stretching endlessly beyond the fence. Heat rippled in the distance, bending the horizon. For a moment I felt detached from my body, like I was watching myself from far away. The daughter he had dismissed, the soldier he didn't quite understand, the person he now needed. I thought back to his voice on the phone days earlier. Don't come. You'll embarrass everyone. A bitter thought surfaced, uninvited and sharp. They didn't need my help to ruin this. The realization didn't bring satisfaction. It brought clarity. I wasn't the problem they'd made me out to be. I never had been. The flaw in their perfect picture had always existed, hidden beneath charm and money and carefully curated appearances. All I had done was remove myself from the frame. My phone buzzed again, Emily calling this time. I stood the concrete warm beneath my palms as I pushed myself upright. My legs felt steady, grounded. Training kicked in quiet and reassuring. Assess, breathe, decide. I answered. Emily, I said. Her voice broke immediately. I don't know what to do, she whispered. Dad's trying to handle it, but it's getting worse. People are recording everything. He's saying things. I know, I interrupted gently. I've seen the videos. There was a pause. You have? Yes. I'm so sorry, she said, the words tumbling over each other. About everything. About Dad telling you not to come. I closed my eyes. The apology felt fragile, late, but sincere. We can talk about that later, I said. Right now, I need you to listen to me. She sniffed. Okay. Are you somewhere safe? Yes, I'm with Aunt Laura. Good, I said. Stay there. Don't go anywhere alone, and don't talk to Marcus. He keeps texting, she admitted. Don't respond, I said firmly. Not yet. I heard my own voice then, steady, authoritative, the voice I used on base when things went sideways. It didn't waver. It didn't apologize. Emily clung to it like a lifeline. When the call ended, I lowered my phone slowly. The desert air felt thicker, charged with something I couldn't name yet. I knew this moment mattered. That whatever came next would change things permanently. I hadn't planned to be part of my sister's wedding day at all. But from a quiet stretch of sand inside a place most people weren't supposed to know about, I realized I was about to be pulled into it in a way none of us could undo. I stayed where I was long after the call with Emily ended, my phone resting in my palm like a live wire. The desert stretched out in front of me, deceptively calm, as if nothing in the world was unraveling. But inside my head, pieces were already clicking into place, forming a picture I didn't like and couldn't ignore. I walked back toward my quarters, slowly letting the heat and distance steady me. Training had taught me that panic was contagious. So was clarity. If I was going to step back into my family's chaos, I needed the latter. By the time I reached my room, my phone had exploded again. Notifications stacked on top of each other, each one a small alarm bell. News sites had picked up the story. Not the respectable ones yet, but the fast-moving blogs and local outlets that thrived on scandal. Headlines were already forming narratives without waiting for facts. Viral wedding meltdown shocks guests. Wealthy groom loses control at lavish ceremony. I clicked one article and skimmed it, jaw tightening. The writer quoted an anonymous guest describing Marcus as unhinged and verbally abusive. Another claimed he'd been drinking heavily all day. Someone else suggested this wasn't the first time he'd behaved this way. That last part made my stomach drop. I sat on the edge of my bed and replayed the videos again, this time not as a shocked sister or a hurt daughter, but as someone trained to read situations under pressure. Marcus's posture, his pacing, the way his voice escalated then dipped into something cold and threatening. I'd seen that look before in men who believed consequences were for other people. My phone buzzed with a text from my stepmother. Your father is barely holding it together. Please call him. I typed back before I could overthink it. Is Emily safe? The reply came almost instantly. For now. That was enough. I called my father. He answered on the first ring, breathless. Sarah, thank God, where are you? At base, I said, where you told me to stay. Listen, he said quickly, the words tumbling out of him now. This has gotten out of hand. Marcus he's not cooperating. His family is furious. They're saying we provoked him, that we humiliated him. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay calm. Did he threaten anyone? There was a pause, too long. He said some things my father said carefully, but people say things when they're upset. Dad, I said, my voice sharpening, did he threaten Emily? Another pause. Then, reluctantly, he told her they needed to talk in private, that she was making things worse by listening to us. My grip tightened on the phone. That's not okay. I know that, he snapped. But right now we need to manage the situation. The press is calling. His family has lawyers. They're talking about defamation. There is no defamation if it's on video, I said. And there are multiple videos. He sighed heavily, frustration bleeding through his fear. This is why I didn't want you involved. You always jump to worst-case scenarios. I laughed, short and humorless. No, this is exactly why you should have wanted me involved. Because I don't pretend problems disappear if you smile hard enough. Silence crackled between us. What do you want from me? He asked finally. The question startled me. He had never asked it before. He had always told me what he wanted, what he expected. This was new territory for both of us. I want you to stop thinking about how this looks, I said, and start thinking about Emily's safety. She's with family, he said defensively. Family didn't stop him from exploding in front of hundreds of people, I replied. Safety isn't about proximity, it's about behavior. Another silence. Then quieter. What should we do? I exhaled slowly. This was the moment everything shifted. First, I said Emily does not meet him alone. At all. Second, you stop communicating with his family without legal advice. Third, you document everything. Messages, calls, voicemails. You sound like a lawyer, he muttered. No, I said. I sound like someone who's dealt with volatile people before. He didn't argue. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, my thoughts racing. I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a wedding gone wrong. This was a pattern revealing itself under pressure. Money and charm had hidden it well until they couldn't. I did something then that surprised even me. I searched Marcus's name. At first, nothing alarming came up: polished profiles, charity events, articles praising his business ventures. Then I refined the search, added keywords, dug a little deeper. That's when I found it. A brief mention in a local paper from 2 years ago. A domestic dispute at an apartment complex. No charges filed. Another entry, a lawsuit quietly settled, details sealed. A third, a former business partner accusing him of intimidation tactics. My pulse quickened. I clicked through forums, archived posts, places most people never bothered to look. A comment here, a vague warning there. Women talking in careful language, never naming him directly, but describing the same behavior. The same charm turning sharp, the same rage when control slipped. I took screenshots, saved links, organized everything into a folder on my phone. Training again, gather intel, verify, prepare. Emily called while I was still piecing it together. Her voice was hoarse, exhausted. He's been messaging nonstop, she said, apologizing, then blaming me. He says this wouldn't have happened if I'd stood up to Dad. That's manipulation, I said gently. You know that, right? She sniffed. I think so. I keep replaying everything, wondering if I missed something. You didn't, I said firmly. This isn't on you. There was a beat of silence. Dad says you're overreacting. I closed my eyes. Of course he does. I'm glad you're not here, she added quietly. I mean, I wish you were, but I don't know if I could handle both of you right now. A small smile tugged at my mouth, despite everything. That might be the nicest thing you've ever said to me. She laughed weakly. I'm serious. So am I replied. Listen to me. I'm coming home, but not tonight, and not to play happy family. Her breath hitched. Okay. Until I get there, do exactly what I said. Stay with people. Don't respond to him. Save everything. I will. When the call ended, I leaned back and stared at the ceiling again. The hum of the ventilation system felt louder now, like the base itself was listening. I hadn't planned to go home. Not like this. Not ever, maybe. But the pieces were too clear now. This wasn't about a wedding anymore. It was about truth breaking through a carefully constructed illusion. About a man my father had trusted because he looked right, said the right things, came from the right world. And about the daughter he'd dismissed because she didn't. I opened my calendar and checked flight availability. The earliest one would get me home the next evening. It wasn't cheap. I booked it anyway. As the confirmation email came through, I felt something settle in my chest. Not fear, not anger, but resolve. I was going back. Not as the awkward daughter who needed to be managed, but as the one who saw what was really happening and refused to look away. The airport felt unreal, like a liminal space where time thinned and emotions dulled just enough to be bearable. I moved through security on muscle memory shoes, on bag-zipped eyes forward. No one there knew why my jaw was set so tight or why my phone never left my hand. To them, I was just another traveler with a one-way urgency and a face that said, "Don't ask questions." On the plane, I took the window seat and watched Nevada recede into rust and bone. Somewhere below the base, folded back into secrecy, doing what it always did, holding still while the rest of the world made noise. I closed my eyes as the engines roared, the vibration pressing into my ribs like a reminder to breathe. My phone buzzed as soon as we leveled off. "Dad, where are you?" I didn't answer. I wasn't ready to give him coordinates. I needed the distance to do its work first. Emily texted a minute later. "Emily, he showed up at the house. Mom wouldn't let him in. He's parked across the street." I sat up straighter, the calm I'd built snapping into focus. This was the escalation I'd been waiting for. "Me, is he alone?" "Emily, yes. He keeps texting. He says he just wants to talk." "Me, don't engage. Call the police if he doesn't leave. I mean it." A pause. Then, "Emily, Dad says calling the police would make it worse." I stared at the screen heat blooming behind my eyes. The same old reflex manage appearances, minimize reality, hope danger would behave if you ignored it. "Me. It will only make it worse if you keep pretending this is normal." The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Emily, okay, I'll tell Mom." I exhaled slowly and leaned back, forcing myself to zoom out. I couldn't fix this from 30,000 feet, but I could plan. I opened the folder on my phone and reviewed what I'd gathered: articles, screenshots, timestamps, patterns, the story underneath the story. My father called. I let it ring until it stopped. Then deliberately I called him back. "Where are you?" he demanded, skipping any pretense of civility. "On my way," I said, "landing tomorrow evening." A beat, relief quickly masked. "Good. We need to coordinate." "No," I replied. "We need to prioritize." "Sarah." "Listen to me," I said, my voice even. "Marcus showed up uninvited. He's pressuring Emily. That's not a PR problem. That's a safety problem." "He just wants to explain himself," Dad insisted. "His family says he was provoked." "By what I asked, by being told no." Silence. "I've been looking into him," I continued. "This isn't new. There are incidents, settlements, people who've learned to keep quiet." "You don't know that," Dad snapped. "I do," I said, "and I have receipts." That stopped him. "What do you want us to do?" he asked, the edge dulling. "I want you to stop trying to control the narrative and start protecting your daughter," I said. "I want you to stop taking calls from his family. I want you to tell Emily she's not meeting him alone, not now, not ever. And I want you to accept that this isn't going away." He sighed, a long, tired sound. "You always make things so complicated." I smiled, thin and sad. "No, Dad. I just refuse to make them small." We ended the call without resolution, which was fine. I wasn't coming back to negotiate my worth. When the plane landed, it was raining, the steady, persistent kind that slicks roads and softens edges. I took a rideshare straight to my parents' house, watching familiar streets blur past the window. The place looked the same as it always had: manicured lawn, warm lights, a careful calm that tried to convince you nothing bad could happen there. Inside, the tension was immediate. My stepmother hovered near the kitchen, eyes red. My father stood by the fireplace, hands clasped behind his back, jaw working. Emily was upstairs. "You came," my father said, as if surprised. "I said I would," I replied. "Where is he?" "Gone," my stepmother said quickly. "For now." "For now," I echoed. Emily came down the stairs, slowly, wrapped in a sweatshirt that swallowed her hands. She looked smaller than I remembered, the aftermath of adrenaline and shock hollowing her out. She crossed the room and hugged me without asking. I stood stiffly for a second, then held her back. "He's been texting nonstop," she whispered into my shoulder. "He says I owe him a conversation." "You don't owe him anything," I said, "and you're not having that conversation." My father cleared his throat. "We need to be careful," he said. "His family has lawyers. They're already talking about defamation." I turned to him. "Careful doesn't mean quiet." "You're not understanding." "No," I interrupted. "You're not listening. There's a difference." I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. "This is what I found," I said. "Incidents, settlements, patterns. You didn't see them because you didn't want to. You saw money and polish and assumed character would follow." My father's face hardened. "You're accusing me of negligence." "I'm accusing you of choosing optics over reality," I said, "and it almost cost Emily." Emily stared at the table, tears slipping free. "Dad," she said softly, "he scares me." That did it. My father's shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of him. He looked older in that moment than I'd ever seen him. "What do you want to do?" he asked her. She looked at me. "I want it to stop," she said. "I want him away from me." "Then we document," I said. "We set boundaries. We involve professionals who don't care about his last name. My stepmother nodded resolute. I'll call a lawyer. Good, I said. And we call the police if he comes back. My father hesitated, then nodded once. Okay. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't accountability, but it was movement. That night, I slept on the couch, my phone charging on the coffee table. I dreamed of desert skies and rain-soaked streets of lines finally crossing where they needed to. When I woke, the house was quiet, the kind of quiet that follows a decision. I sat up stretched and checked my messages. None from Marcus, not yet. I knew better than to believe it was over. But for the first time since the wedding video lit up my screen, I felt aligned with myself. I hadn't come back to be managed or minimized. I'd come back to tell the truth and to make sure it stuck. Morning light crept into the living room in thin gray bands illuminating dust motes and the quiet aftermath of the night before. I lay still on the couch listening. The house sounded different when it wasn't trying to impress anyone. No clatter of preparation, no forced cheer. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the soft tick of the wall clock counting forward whether we were ready or not. I checked my phone. Still nothing from Marcus. That didn't comfort me. Silence from men like him was rarely surrender. It was recalibration. Emily came downstairs around 8, hair pulled back, face bare. She looked exhausted but steadier than the night before. She poured herself coffee and sat across from me at the table, wrapping both hands around the mug like it was an anchor. I didn't sleep, she said. Me neither, I replied. She hesitated, then met my eyes. I should have fought harder. About you, about the wedding. I held her gaze. You were raised to keep the peace, I said. So was I. We just learned different versions of it. She nodded slowly, absorbing that. Dad's on the phone with his lawyer, she added. He asked me if I wanted to press charges. My eyebrows lifted, and I said I want a restraining order, she said. Her voice shook, but she didn't back down. I don't want to see him again. I felt a quiet surge of pride. That's a clear boundary. My father appeared in the doorway, then Ty already on phone pressed to his ear. He ended the call when he saw us. For a moment he just stood there taking in the scene, his 2 daughters at the table, no smiles, no performances. We have a meeting at 11, he said. The attorney thinks a temporary order is doable given the videos and messages. Good, I said. He nodded, then paused. I also spoke to Marcus's father. I stiffened, and he's furious, my father said. Not at us, at Marcus. He claims he had no idea about any of this. Did he apologize? Emily asked quietly. My father shook his head. He said this should have been handled privately. I let out a short, sharp laugh. Of course he did. My father looked at me, irritation flaring. This doesn't have to become a spectacle. It already is, I said calmly. The question is whether you keep pretending you can put it back in the box. He bristled. You think I don't understand that? I think you understand it intellectually, I replied. But emotionally, you're still trying to save face. The words landed hard. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. For once, he didn't deflect. I made mistakes, he said finally. The admission sounded unfamiliar, like a foreign language he wasn't fluent in. I trusted the wrong things. I ignored signs. Emily's hands tightened around her mug. You ignored me, she said. When I said he scared me. The room went very still. My father swallowed. I thought you were just nervous. I thought it was wedding stress. And when I said I didn't want Sarah there, Emily pressed. That was about stress, too. He winced. I told myself it was easier, he said quietly, that fewer variables meant fewer problems. I met his eyes. People aren't variables. He nodded once sharply, as if the motion hurt. I see that now. It wasn't an apology, not yet, but it was closer than we'd ever been. The rest of the morning passed in logistics, calls, emails, printing screenshots, saving voicemails. I moved through it all with practiced efficiency, stepping in where things bogged down, explaining procedures when emotions threatened to derail them. My father watched me differently now, less like a liability, more like a colleague he hadn't realized he needed. At 11, we sat across from the attorney in a quiet conference room downtown. She was direct, unflappable, unimpressed by Marcus's last name. She asked Emily questions and listened without interrupting. When Emily faltered, she waited. This is coercive behavior, the attorney said matter-of-factly. The public incident strengthens your case. So do the messages. My father leaned back in his chair, the weight of it all pressing into him. What about retaliation, he asked. His family has resources. They also have reputations, she replied, and this is not a fight they want in public. I watched my father absorb that. It was the first time someone had spoken his language, power, and consequence without flinching. By mid-afternoon, the paperwork was filed, temporary order requested, documentation submitted, a line drawn where there hadn't been one before. On the way home, my father drove in silence. Rain streaked the windshield, blurring the world beyond it. At a red light, he spoke. You didn't have to come back, he said, after what I said. No, I agreed, I didn't. Why did you? He asked. I considered the question. Because Emily asked for help, I said. And because I'm done letting silence decide things. He nodded slowly. I underestimated you. I didn't respond. The admission mattered more than the acknowledgement. That evening, a news alert popped up on my phone. Marcus's family had released a brief statement expressing deep regret and asking for privacy. Comments flooded in anyway. The narrative was shifting away from spectacle and toward accountability. Emily read it over my shoulder. Do you think it's really over? No, I said honestly, but it's different now. How? Now there are boundaries, I said, and witnesses. She exhaled a long, relieved sound. Thank you. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the golden child or the easy one, but a young woman relearning her footing. You're doing the hard part, I said. I'm just here for backup. That night, as I packed my bag for the return to base, my father stood in the doorway. I told you to stay away, he said quietly, because I was afraid. Of what? I asked. That you would see the cracks, he admitted. That you would see me. I zipped the bag and met his eyes. I see you, I said. Now you have to decide what you're going to do with that. He nodded once, a small decisive motion. I left the next morning before dawn. As the car pulled away, I felt the familiar calm settle in. I wasn't running, I wasn't hiding. I was returning to where I belonged, having finally claimed the right to do so on my own terms. I was back at base when the temporary restraining order was approved. The email came through just after sunrise, the desert sky still pale and undecided. I read it twice to make sure I wasn't imagining the words. Granted. Effective immediately. No contact. No proximity. No excuses. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Out here the world made sense again. The rules were clear. Actions had consequences. Lines once drawn mattered. I walked across the gravel path toward my building boots, crunching softly, and felt the tension in my shoulders finally ease. I wasn't home, not in the traditional sense, but I was grounded. Emily called that afternoon. It went through, she said, relief woven through every syllable. He's not allowed near me, not the house, not my work, nothing. That's good, I said. How are you feeling? Tired, she admitted, but lighter, like I'm not bracing for impact anymore. I smiled. That's what boundaries feel like. She hesitated. Dad wants to talk to you. I figured. I told him he should, she added quickly, not because you owe him anything, just because he needs to say it. I was quiet for a moment, watching heat ripple across the horizon. I'll listen, I said. That's all I'm promising. That evening my father called. His voice sounded different, less controlled, more human. I owe you an apology, he said without preamble. For what I said. For what I've been saying your whole life. I leaned against the railing outside my building, the metal warm beneath my palms. Go on. I told you not to come because I was ashamed, he admitted. Not of you, of myself. I built my identity on appearances, on what other people thought. And you didn't fit into the story I was trying to tell. I closed my eyes. The words landed heavy but clean. So I tried to manage you, he continued, minimize you. And when you didn't disappear the way I expected, I pushed harder. Yes, I said simply. I was wrong, he said, about you, about what matters. Silence followed, thick but not hostile. I could hear his breathing, uneven, uncertain. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he added quickly. I know that's not how this works. I need you to know that I see you now. I see your strength. I see what I missed. I thought about the years of quiet dinners of standing just outside the circle of approval, about the phone call where he told me I would embarrass everyone, about the desert sun beating down on me as his perfect day fell apart without my involvement. I hear you, I said, but seeing me isn't the same as respecting me. I know, he replied. I'm trying to learn the difference. That was new. My father didn't try. He dictated. The admission didn't erase the past, but it cracked something open. We'll see, I said. Time will tell. After the call, I sat there for a long while listening to the quiet hum of the bass settling in for the night. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt steady, like something inside me had finally aligned. Weeks passed. The story faded from headlines, replaced by the next outrage, the next spectacle. Marcus disappeared from public view. His family issued another carefully worded statement and then went silent. The machine moved on. Emily started therapy. She sent me photos of her small apartment, sparsely furnished, but hers. She went back to work. She laughed more easily now, less guarded. We talked regularly, not the polite surface-level check-ins we'd mastered as adults, but real conversations. About fear, about guilt, about who we'd been taught to be. I'm figuring out who I am without trying to impress anyone, she told me one night. It's harder than I thought. It's worth it, I said. My father made changes too slow and imperfect. He stopped correcting me when I spoke. He asked questions and waited for answers. Once he even admitted he didn't understand my work and asked me to explain it. That alone felt like an earthquake. I didn't move back home. I didn't need to. My life was full where I was. Purposeful. Earned. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the desert in shades of copper and gold, I found myself walking the same stretch of fence where this all began. The place where I'd stood phone in hand watching my family's illusion shatter from a distance. I thought about the girl I'd been then, quiet, conditioned to stay small, convinced that love was something you earned by not being inconvenient. I wished I could tell her what I knew now. That being excluded isn't the same as being unworthy. That silence isn't the same as peace. That sometimes the moment you're told to stay away is the moment you finally see the truth. I didn't get revenge in the way movies promise. I didn't burn bridges or humiliate anyone on purpose. I didn't win by destroying them. I won by refusing to disappear. By choosing honesty over harmony. By setting boundaries instead of begging for acceptance. By standing still while the people who underestimated me scrambled to catch up. If there's one thing this story taught me, it's this: the people who call you awkward, difficult, or embarrassing are often just uncomfortable with the fact that you can't be controlled. And the moment you stop trying to fit into their version of you, everything changes. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been made to feel like you were too much or not enough or simply in the way, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. Your story matters too. We share real experiences here, the kind that don't always get told out loud, but change lives all the same. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story, and let's keep this journey going together.